So I'm going briefly to talk about an issue that I've been repeatedly asked in the last few days, and the nuclear agreement. And as a political scientist, I'd like to put it in a broader picture. So the question I've been asked repeatedly is, should we certify or decertify the nuclear agreement? And my answer is that regardless of whether President Trump decides to certify or decertify the nuclear agreement, we need really to address several important issues about the nuclear agreement. One issue that I focus on is indicated in the preamble of the nuclear agreement that ask all the signatories anticipate that the nuclear agreement is going to positively contribute to regional peace and stability. And there is, aside from that, there is also the congressional ratification stipulating that the president should make sure that not only Iran is complying with the nuclear agreement, but also the suspensions of the nuclear-related sanctions should be in the vital interest of the United States, national interest. So I think the answer to the question that whether Iran, after the nuclear agreement, has positively contributed, I think is very clear. Any astute observer of Iran politics can see how Iran's influence in the region has expanded exponentially in the region in many countries in the last 2 years. In Iraq, PMF militias. In Yemen, several shipments of weapons have been intercepted. In Kuwait, they were caught recently, and several diplomats were kicked out of Kuwait for links to terror cells. So in Syria, so it goes on. And when it comes to the ballistic missile, in the last 2 years, they have tested more than 10 ballistic missiles. And that's unprecedented. And for the first time in 30 years, they actually launched a missile inside other country, and that was Syria. So you tell me that they are not emboldened and they are not empowered. That's not accurate. They are emboldened and they are empowered, and they are expanding their influence very rapidly. And when it comes to Iran's policy towards the US, I mean, the anti-Americanism of the regime has ratcheted up. Just listen to every speech Khamenei is giving. You could see the anti-Americanism, inciting anti-Americanism in the region, supporting militias that are sworn to harm US national security, and let me say they are sworn to kill American if they can find it in the region. So these three things have not changed, not only have not changed, but has exacerbated. So this is one point. The second point I hear a lot, they tell you, well, the IAEA is saying that Iran is complying, so we should just sit back and let the agreement go for 15 years and everything will be fine. Well, there are two problems here. One, the terms upon which the IAEA is basing its verification are very flimsy, they're very broad, and it's very hard actually to say that Iran is not complying. Why? Because the military sites are not part of the verification, and military sites are the major place where actually nuclear development research are conducted. So how can you verify Iran is not is not pursuing its nuclear ambition, is not developing a nuclear bomb by not actually checking the places that they are working on? And I would like really to, anybody who hasn't read this, the National Council for the System of Iran report, 54 pages. It's a very detailed report. It's published on Fox News and other outlets. They exactly tell you which places, and you could read, and there are a lot of suspicions about their activities, and it looks like it's operational. I mean, they haven't stopped their nuclear ambitions. And second thing, you should take IAEA's verification with a grain of salt. I mean, IAEA has repeatedly failed to verify that Iran is complying. It was the National Council, it was the organized Iranian opposition, the National Council for Resistance of Iran, that disclosed Iran clandestine activities in 2002. If it was not for the NCRI, Iran would have already had a nuclear bomb. Because if we have set back and say, okay, let's say IAEA, we just rely on IAEA, they didn't disclose this location. If it was not for the US intelligence to find other places that Iran was conducting illegal nuclear activities, we would have much more problems. So you can't really rely on the IAEA to completely verify that Iran is complying with the nuclear agreement. If we make agreement with Iran, it will help Iranian people economically, politically. There will be social justice in Iran. It will empower the so-called moderate. Well, Dr. Khazaroni and the previous presenter, they talked about human rights violation. Just read Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch reports this year. The executions under the tenure of Rouhani is much more than the previous administration that was hardline Ahmadinejad. This so-called moderate has executed more people than the previous used to do it. And the best policy is, I think, the policy of firmness and decisiveness against the regime and recognizing the rights of the Iranian people and Iranian opposition to establish democracy in Iran. I have said it repeatedly. The soft power of the Iranian opposition is the thing that the Iranian regime fear most, because they have connection in Iran. They have a lot of members, and a lot of people support them. So it's the they fear the soft power of opposition more than the hard power of the United States. So if you support the opposition and the Iranian people, I think that's the best policy, and you don't have to engage.